Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldman. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday. What are we on? The 13th, almost to the Ides of March. Wednesday, March 13th, 2019. Beware the Ides of March. You always should. It's a Friday this year, so I don't know what that means. There could be some sort of late afternoon news dump that I guess murders you in the Senate or something like that. I don't know how you would portray it happening in the modern day. But I know that you're supposed to beware of these things. Plenty to beware of today. Plenty to be happy about today. Of course, it being a Wednesday, we like to look forward to hearing from Greg Dworkin in our first hour and Joan McCarter in our second. I see here one of the things that the lack of a functioning laptop has cost you. If you're totaling up the costs of being without the backup laptop, which actually is a pretty integral part of the show, as it turns out, was we missed a message from Armando yesterday offering up, and we could have used it on a Tuesday, offering up his rant on Pelosi. And so I want to apologize first to Armando for not seeing his message. You see, it comes up ordinarily in Skype, and on the laptop, that is immediately visible, and on the big desktop thing, the way things are configured, all of my little app icons are sunken off screen, and as a matter of fact, I'm having a terrible time getting them to come up now that I look at things, and where are all my... they're not coming up here, so okay, I'm going to have some difficulty controlling the sound as long as that's the case, but usually, a little red circle pops up on my Skype icon that tells me somebody is attempting to contact me, or there's an active chat going on here. And so I didn't see his offer of a Pelosi rant yesterday. So I apologize first to Armando for not picking up on that. And second to all the rest of you, at least one of you who expressed the view on Twitter that Armando rants ought to be included in the show every day. We had a chance to include one yesterday. We didn't do it because something. Laptop, I guess. So we're still working on trying to configure exactly what we're going to need for the laptop. If we're going to start over again, and that's not a guarantee, but first we got to find out how much it's going to cost us at the local Mac repair shop to fix up the old one if we want to try and do that. Second, try and configure a new map. When you're starting over, you get the chance to say, well, I'd like to boost the memory, I'd maybe get a faster processor, and piecing together how much that's going to cost and where to get that money is, it's not a difficult thing to do, but it's a sort of a full-time thing. That is, it's going to require a couple hours in a row, and that means weekend. And that means not today, tomorrow, or the next day. And then once Saturday rolls around, I'm sure I'll be wishing I had time to spend on other things instead. Probably doing massive fundraising to get my kids and yours into Harvard or elsewhere. Now that the secret is out there, that's been the Twitter chatter for the last 24 hours or so. I don't know. I guess America found out that you can cheat and bribe your way into elite colleges and universities, and although that's always sort of been the case, there's I don't know, it's very odd. It's this genteel way of doing it, like here's several $1 million at once, and I want you to build a building and put my name on it and put my kid in the school. Why don't they say, well, we'll put your kid in the school, but we get to name the building after someone interesting and important? I don't know why they give away the naming rights. That should be additional money. You know how it is with stadiums. It's an additional money thing. But this was a way, I guess, for people who are mere multimillionaires to bribe their way into schools. You got to be a billionaire in order to give away the now $6 to $10 million that it would take to get an elite university to just admit your kids, no questions asked. If you don't have that kind of money, apparently, now this is where I guess the illegality of it comes in. You can get the coaches to pretend they are players of some obscure sport. I guess in a bid to equalize the access to elite schools for athletes of all sorts. I guess one of the more popular things in California is to pretend you are a water polo player, which I was going to say, imagine being an real elite water polo player and finding that your spot is given away to someone who's fake. But then I realized I can't imagine being a water polo player at all. So, all right, I'm sure that there are listeners in California who know water polo players, and you're welcome to object. Send your objections to Armando. That will be his job. He'll rant on them. In the meantime, Greg Dworkin here with probably something entirely different, although if I take a good look at your list of stories, it's probably in there too.
Oh, absolutely in there.
Oh, yeah. Okay, where are my stories?
It's toward the bottom here.
Gotcha.
There's, first of all, I have this piece from the LA Times.
Yes.
College admissions cheating scandal. Here is everyone charged in the case.
Everyone. Oh.
Okay. So there's like 50 people, and it's like a who's who of like, who are these people? and here's where you learn, for example, that the Yale soccer coach deliberately took bribes. There's a whole hierarchy here. And a matter of fact, that maybe we should start with that. The whole hierarchy is part of the whole thing, you see, because like if you're really super rich, then you build a building or donate a building and get your name on it, and your kid gets in.
Apparently.
Right? And if you're just like a working schlub, then you work hard in high school and hopefully you do well on your SATs, and maybe you play the saxophone and maybe even play basketball or something like that, and then you throw your case, your application into the lottery, and then hopefully something happens. And this guy was offering what he called a side door.
Yes.
And instead of getting in the front door by working or the back door by donating, he had a side door, and his side door was more guaranteed. So the whole idea was that you didn't overdo it. You didn't compete for a scholarship, which would make people look at you, but you approached a coach of, you mentioned water polo, but also soccer or sailing or non-football stuff, who had one or two slots assigned to them for admission. And either you paid a guy who ran the SAT day down in your home community to look the other way while somebody else took a test, or you paid the guy with the one or two slots directly to get your kid in. And that was
or
the side
some combination of, and it's pretty blatant. A lot of it involved actually, flying in ringers to either take the test for your kid if you could get it assigned to a different site, or sit side by side, claiming that your child had a learning disability of some sort, and this person would just sit there and give them the answers. I'm not sure what kind of learning disability that's supposed to be, but... Well,
if you have ADHD, for example, you're entitled to get extra time on tests. That's standard in just about any college.
Yeah, that I've heard of. Having someone sit with you and whisper answers in your ear, I'm not aware of
It's a different story altogether. That's where it starts to get illegal.
Disability is that? Yeah. Right.
So, that's the background to all of this. And now here's a fascinating tweet storm.
Yeah, okay.
From Anand Girid Haridas. I've been practicing that. I probably got it wrong. I'm sorry, but I'm trying.
You tried. That's important.
Who tweeted about the juiciest, most revealing fact in the college bribery story, and it isn't Hollywood. It's a guy named Bill.
Oh, Bill, yeah, juicy.
Whose alleged involvement tells us everything we need to know about our age. Going back to the LA Times piece, William McGlashan is listed here for conspiracy to commit mail fraud and honest services mail fraud.
Okay.
McGlashan of Mill Valley is a senior executive at global private equity firm TPG Growth.
All right.
He also sits on the board of trustees at Marin Academy, a private prep school in San Rafael, according to the Marin Independent Journal. He's accused of participating in the cheating and college recruitment scheme, and is also accused of conspiring to bribe Heinel, until Tuesday, a senior associate athletic director at USC, to ease his son's admission to the school as a recruited athlete. So he's one of many names. What does all that mean? Well, that's where the tweet storm comes in.
Okay.
This is Bill McGlashan. He's a partner at TPG, the private equity giant. He's not a Hollywood star, but he is a cornerstone of the business philanthropic establishment.
Okay.
He's got a Stanford MBA, a Yale BA, nonprofits, and other good causes up to his ears.
An otherwise blameless life is what he's got going on here.
But what is the most telling thing here? He's the CEO of the Rise Fund at TPG, which is a private equity fund's impact investing arm. The Rise Fund is all about achieving social justice through high finance.
Oh, good. It's working.
And it has enlisted Bono as its wingman. Okay. From the beginning, there have been skeptics of the impact investing approach to social change. This is essentially Davos will save the world, just give us your money.
Oh, yes. Right. Okay.
Right? That's where all of this is going. Can the architects and operators of the winners-take-all world really be the key to solving inequality? Impact investors promised us, yes, they could.
Okay, good.
And now, one of the absolute deans of the Doing Well by Doing Good industrial complex, a man who embodied the faith that the meek of the earth could be saved by private equity barons, has been indicted for rigging the opportunity structure against the disadvantaged.
Dough.
Indicted,
I mean. They am doughing about that.
Dough, like he's rolling in the dough, and he wants more. When Simon Wall Street Journal called me about, that's one of the reporters, called me about TPG and Bono in January, I said, what Bono is doing is legitimizing the idea that the best way to solve the world's problems is in ways that don't threaten the powerful, that allow them to stay on top to avoid paying taxes and give us a little back. This story brings it home, and more than the celebrities, for me, it's about Bill McGlashan, who epitomizes the modern fantasy that the rich people who rig the modern world, who monopolize the American dream for themselves, are the solution to redressing our injustices. What's alleged in this scheme is that somebody who claimed to be working to change the system, change capitalism, empower others, help others rise, was working downstream to lock others out of a slot that they perhaps deserve, but would instead go to their kid. And I know the Bill McGlashans of this world. I report on them. I argue with them now. They email me. They DM me. And they explain, I don't get it. I'm too negative. They're solving real problems. I'm just writing about things. Okay?
Yes.
And then the mask slips, and then we see. Elite do-gooders like Bill McGlashan sometimes do real good. They help communities and even save lives. But so much of what they do follows one overpowering rule. They're willing to help in ways that allow them to stay on top and lock others out. This story must be remembered. At a conference for The Economist recently, I called for a moratorium on impact investing until finance unwinds its own complicity in the injustice it purportedly wants to help solve. I redouble that call now. There should be a signal moment. Don't tell yourself this man is a one-off. He's a perfect metaphor for an improvement investment industry that wants the reputational benefits of changing the world while clinging to the systems of oppression that continue to cause the problems you supposedly are devoted to solving. You know,
I see.
It's just this is the financial equivalent of charter schools.
Yeah. Well, this has got a lot.
Give me your money, I'll save everything, but I'll do it in a way that's going to enrich myself.
Yeah, and we were just talking about this when the historian, European, right, wasn't he?
Yeah,
who showed up at
historian. Yeah.
Yes, showed up at Davos and said, you know, the other way to deal with this, the actual real way of dealing with this, is everybody pay a little more taxes and don't avoid them, and then, you know, I mean, I guess it's susceptible to the same problems, right? You say, well, essentially you're going to move the money to the government. The government will have the hand in solving it, but the government gets watched a lot more closely than Bill McGlashan ever will be, and I suppose you could argue that corruption would be rooted out and stopped earlier, but then again, Donald Trump is president, so.
Yeah. So he ends with, by the way, don't even say it. Not all impact investors. I'm not interested in not all men, not all white men, not all white people. This is a conversation about systems. Understand how you belong to the system. And the system is, if you're not rich and bribe your way in, then you are on a different scale than everybody else, and you're getting cheated. Yeah. That's how the system works.
Just for starters, there's been an awful lot of very good points made also. Naturally, it's easy to observe in this situation the number of people who are doing this on the one hand, and on the other hand, screaming that their kids might get blocked from an elite school by affirmative action, which is terrible.
Right.
And
it brings up the whole affirmative action things,
right.
Of course.
But lots of people of color telling their stories of, I actually did work my ass off, and even if I made it, even some of them who made it into elite schools said, I spent my whole career, high school and college, being told to my face by my white peers that I cheated to get in by being black.
So Kellyanne Conway was complaining about this and saying, it's all Hollywood and, this, that, and everything else. And Bradley Moss, the lawyer, tweeted back, I look forward to you supporting a probe into how Jared got into Harvard.
Yes, that's it opens the door to a lot of this. Or how, for that matter, Trump got into Penn from out of Fordham.
But probably my favorite tweet about this was from Ryan Riley. He said, helicopter parenting, but by people who own helicopters.
I thought that's what that originally was all about. So I'm glad it finally came around to original principles, helicopter parenting. Okay.
Right, exactly.
Excellent.
So there's that. And, what impact will that have? Well, this is, if you have a kid and they want to go to college, this affects you.
Yeah.
So this is something, it's got Hollywood, it's got celebrity, it's got, go to jail, it's got fall of the rich and powerful, like a Greek tragedy. It's got a lot of stuff in here that's going to attract people's attention. NBC News was trying to sort this out and said, for those, and they listed a whole bunch of people from Bernie to Kamala Harris, others who made their initial campaign pitch, their opening presentation, the Amy Klobuchar and the Snow kind of thing, about how it's a rigged system and the rich get treated differently. And this just plays right into that.
Yes, well, it is it. So
it is it. Yeah. There's something to that.
Yeah.
So. That's always important. There's polling out, always worth mentioning. I didn't mention the Monmouth poll from the other day, national poll.
Oh.
Only 38% support a second term for real Donald Trump.
Oh.
It's called real Donald Trump because that's his Twitter signature.
Right.
57% wanted change. Warning sign for 2020 in nation's most competitive counties. Only 33% back re-election and 61% want someone new. Trump lost these 300-some-odd swing counties by a single point in 2016. And now it's 33-61 against.
Oh, I see.
So when I say that Trump is not the favorite, that doesn't guarantee that he loses. But I'm saying, just don't call him the favorite. He's not. For all of the Democrats going through the whole process of trying to figure out who is going to represent them with Joe Biden and Beto O'Rourke probably getting into the race, Stacey Abrams making noises, a big field. But Trump is not the favorite, and it really doesn't matter which Democrat you put there.
Well, okay. I mean,
as long as it's not Howard Schultz.
Yeah, all right. Well,
because everybody hates Howard Schultz.
Okay. Yeah, well, he's uniting the country at last.
Greg Sargent had a piece on that. Trump's emerging re-election strategy, double down on failure and lies. And that gets to, some of the stuff that's going on today. So maybe we'll just do some lightning round stuff between now and the 9:27 break. We got a lot of time between then and now.
Yeah.
But what Greg Sargent said is there's a lot of anxiety, one GOP donor said, largely due to Trump's evident inability to grasp how deeply his relentless focus on his base has alienated moderates and independents. Hello, we've been saying that.
Yeah,
we are now learning new details about Trump's re-election strategy, and there's zero indication his team is taking these concerns seriously. Thank you, Trump re-election team. It looks as if Trump's operation is only leaning harder into that base-only strategy, in no small part because the strategy is being set by Trump himself.
Aha.
Now, here was an interesting one. Tim Miller tweeted this from the Iowa polls. We talked about the Iowa Democratic polls the other day. More on that from Nate Silver. But this was an Iowa Republican poll from the Des Moines Register. Among Iowa Republicans, do you hope there's a challenger to Trump in the caucuses?
Yes.
Okay. 40% hope there is. 41% hope there isn't.
Okay.
And 19% is not sure. Now, this is a guy where his Trump approval in Iowa among Republicans is 81%.
Yes.
And yet the number of GOP voters who would vote to definitely reelect is only 67%.
Okay.
Okay. 90% of Republicans in Iowa want to see him campaign by promoting positive changes for the country, and only 4% want him to focus on attacking his opponents. Guess what's going to happen?
Well, he knows how to do one of those two things.
Right. The point is that there's some underbelly weakness there. That if somebody like a William Weld runs against Trump in Iowa, he'll get clobbered.
Yes.
But winning isn't the point. Oh. The point is that no matter what they tell the pollsters, they're not so thrilled with him.
Okay. I wonder why.
I wonder why. But that has a lot more relevance to the general than it does in a Republican primary. Yes. It's not like 90% of the Republicans are just in love with him and want nothing but Trump. That's not what this is saying. Otherwise, 40% of them wouldn't be hoping that there's a challenger.
I guess not.
So, that's all important. And as far as the Democratic side and who's ahead and who's not ahead, Nate Silver writes up the polls and says, don't dismiss Bernie's lead or Biden's lead as just name recognition. I think Biden's going to have a bigger problem than Bernie, even though Biden is leading Bernie in the polls right now. But on balance, Nate writes, I suspect that smart observers of the political process don't give enough consideration to early polls, such as the CNN Des Moines Register poll of Iowa caucus goers conducted by top-rated polling firm Selzer and Company, that's Ann Selzer. They came out last weekend, as we documented in a 3-part series back in 2011. The notion that early polling is meaningless or solely reflects name recognition is wrong, full stop. Doesn't matter how popular it is. Other things held equal, for example, a candidate polling at 25% in early polls, and that's where Bernie and Joe Biden are, is 5 or 6 times more likely to win the primary than one polling at 5%, which is where an Amy Klobuchar would be. Okay. It would be equally, if not more wrong, to say whoever leads in early polls is certain to win. That's not what this is saying. But I don't hear anybody saying that. At least I haven't heard anybody saying it's about the Democrats leading the polls so far this year. So it's Biden versus Sanders. That's not what's going on here. It's just that they're in better position than people think.
Okay. I can accept that much.
All right. So having said that, Ron Browsian had a very good piece here about the battle over the voting booth, and it's all about H.R. 1. We don't talk about that enough. No. The other thing we don't talk about enough, of course, is that the Republican budget wants to take away your Medicare, and that really ought to be something. Well, just like in 2018, the Democrats ran on health care, they ought to be running on Trump wants to take your Medicare.
Yes, well, he's just re-upped in his commitment to doing that, so I suppose it'll take a few days for everybody to get on that.
Well, it should be the theme between now and 2020. Well, the unanimous vote among House Democrats to approve sweeping political overhaul legislation last week, that's H.R. 1, has little prospect of becoming law anytime soon because Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has already indicated he intends to block it from reaching a vote, and Trump has committed a veto. But the bill identified a comprehensive agenda, particularly in raising obstacles that discourage people from registering and voting, which is how the GOP stays in power, so it has to be done at state level too, that has quickly moved to the top of Democratic priority list for the 2020 campaign and beyond. And you know what happens when you expose Republican schemes? North Carolina 9. They lose. And now they're having trouble getting a first-tier candidate in there to run against McCready, who's the Democrats going to run again.
They didn't like Boss Hogg? He wasn't good enough?
Well, they have like 9 other Boss Hoggs who are competing.
All right,
anyway, the legislation makes clear that Democrats and civil rights groups are committed to a long-range campaign to leverage federal power to overcome state-level barriers, particularly across the Sun Belt, that local Republican parties have constructed partly to delay the political emergence of growing minority communities, critics suspect, which tend to vote Democratic.
They do.
There is a sense, says this quote, from Manuel Pastor, director of the Program for Environmental and Regional Equity at the University of Southern California. I wonder how he got in. There is a sense that while the restriction of voting rights and the closing of polling stations, I'm going to say that about every time they identify somebody as belonging to a school. There's a sense that while the restriction of voting rights and the closing of polling stations and the variety of things that have been disenfranchising younger voters of color and younger voters in general has been happening at a state level, it's been part of a national plan. So it's no surprise that once Democrats have control of the House, they're trying to use the levers of the federal government to do something about this. So there's political revisions on almost every front, this piece says, from expanding public financing for federal elections to imposing new restrictions on lobbyists, requiring states to redraw congressional lines, but the bill's most consequential provisions would significantly expand access to voting and block many steps that states have taken to limit it. You get to see that at state level, by the way, right now in Florida, as people fight to implement the rejection of the restriction of and to restore felon voting rights.
Ah, yes, right.
And that, affects 1 million people, so it's a big deal.
Yes, it does. And the big worry that once again the Republican legislative agenda ends up being undoing all the things adopted either by popular referendum or otherwise promised by Republican politicians on the campaign trail.
Right. Here's some of the list. The bill would require states to automatically register adults to vote whenever they come in contact with government agencies.
Oh.
Can you see that, right? This is ICE. We're going to deport you. Would you like to register to vote?
Well, it might be ironic.
It's the law. We have to.
Yeah.
Allow same-day registration, permit online registration, limit the tools states have used to purge voter rolls, provide at least 15 days of early voting opportunities, eliminate barriers to voting by mail, and allow voters who don't have the identification required by state law to cast ballots if they present sworn affidavits.
Okay. Those would all be good things.
These changes can increase the number of Americans registered to vote by as much as 50 million.
Wow. Okay. There's
now
a lot.
You're talking about real numbers here.
Yes, that would solve a lot of the problems. I don't know how Trump would claim to have won the popular vote after that, but I assume he would
There's only Trump voters
charging that 60 million people voted illegally. Yeah. I guess that must be it. Okay, well, they'll be working on that excuse. They've got a couple of months to refine it to ways to convince us all that we're all illegal voters. I would say good luck, except I want them to fail dramatically. Okay, we'll be back in 2 minutes, unless we fail dramatically. Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com.
I'll just mention.
Welcome back now to Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We apparently have a lot of material to try and get through here, so we'll try and I'll get out of your way and see how you want to pace this.
Well, we're going to do some lightning round stuff. For example,
it's good pace.
I want to remind people that it's 9:30.
Right.
That's not really what I wanted to remind you of, but the import of it being 9:30 is that Paul Manafort is standing up in front of the judge right now in Washington, not Virginia, and he's going to be sentenced.
Yeah, I got a sentence for him.
Yeah, I got it longer than a sentence for him.
Oh, all right.
So Zoe Tillman, who's a reporter covering courts and justice for BuzzFeed News, tells me Judge Amy Berman Jackson has just taken the bench. I guess that means she sat down, right?
Yes.
So she didn't actually physically take the bench and leave with it. That would be
her bench.
Monty Python stuff. It's her bench. I'm taking my bench and going home.
Right.
She could have done that with Roger Stone.
Yeah, hit him over the head with the bench.
Right. But Paul Manafort is in the courtroom. He's apparently wearing a dark suit, white shirt, what appears to be a purple tie, and he's in a wheelchair because you want to make people feel sorry for you when they sentence you.
What happened to the jumpsuit? They made him. That's interesting. They made him go in prison clothing in Virginia and then let him go, more or less.
Yeah.
Now here,
and now he's in his let him go stuff.
Yeah.
And we'll see if they put him in a jumpsuit.
All right. Okay.
All right. Also, I believe today, I think, is when Matt Whitaker sits down in closed session with Jerry Nadler and the committee's top Republican, Georgia Representative Doug Collins, to talk about some discrepancies in Whitaker's testimony.
Discrepancies. Well.
Yeah.
Nadler
said that Whitaker's answers were unsatisfactory, incomplete, or contradicted by other evidence.
Yes.
I think some of those questions were like, did Trump ever tell you or ask you to intervene in, let's say, Southern District of New York?
Right.
Stuff. No, he never talked to me about it. Really? Well, according to this.
Yeah.
So Whitaker didn't offer clear responses with his communications with the White House and was inconsistent in testifying about the department's policy on discussing ongoing investigations. So we won't know anything about that other than we'll see if he's sweating when he comes out. Probably yes.
Yeah, well, he sweats quite a bit, I think.
He does.
Yeah, that, and we also heard just the other day that another one of those things where the government swore this didn't happen, and it turns out that it did. This time, I guess, what was it? Whitaker was tasked with delivering Sessions' letter to the Utah U.S. attorney, directing them to essentially reevaluate the whole Uranium One Clinton Foundation connection, and they swore that letter was never written and didn't exist in court. And now they found out that not only does it exist, but the guy they'll be questioning today was tasked with delivering it and had nothing to say when they were searching for it the first time. Interesting.
But was he really acting attorney general at the time?
No.
So it doesn't matter.
Well,
he was just a private
except, yeah, that would be an interesting excuse. What are you looking at me for? I was never the acting attorney general.
Yeah, you got some.
That would be great. That's a great idea for him to show up today and say, "No, I'm not taking your oath and I'm not answering your questions." Some guy you grabbed up the street.
In the morning, and I realized you got nothing on me, coppers.
Wow,
I would love that. That'd be great.
I think.
Okay, thank you. I have my
hate
job.
All right, there we go.
All right, now
next lightning.
Tucker Carlson is in a bit of trouble, and so is Jeanine Pirro. Here's a piece from NBC News noting that Fox News advertisers are pulling their advertising on those shows.
Okay.
Tucker Carlson made some noxious remarks about women, about a number of things, child rape, and so on and so forth. Carlson, who joined the Fox network in 2009, made the comments on a radio talk show hosted by, quote, Bubba the Love Sponge, unquote, whose real name is Todd Allen Clem. He's a shock jock out of course, Florida.
Sure.
Florida man, caught in discussion with Tucker Carlson. From 2006 to 2011, Carlson was a host on MSNBC from 2005 to 2008, and he's worked for CNN, and he's worked for PBS. So talk about privilege.
Yes.
Here's a guy. I wonder how he got into school. Some companies, including pharmaceutical giant AstraZeneca, have confirmed they are no longer advertising on his show. Sheeks, S-H-E-E-X, a betting firm, also included a statement saying it would cease advertising on Carlson's show.
Okay.
AstraZeneca can confirm we're no longer advertising on the Tucker Carlson show, and we will not be advertising in this program in the future. Outback Steakhouse is also not advertising on the show.
Okay.
Fox News said in a statement it stands by Carlson.
Sure.
Let's see, who remained? Oh, MyPillow remained.
Okay. Those guys are reliable. Yeah, sure.
We cannot and will not allow voices like Tucker Carlson to be censored by agenda-driven intimidation efforts from the likes of Move On, Media Matters, and Sleeping Giants.
All right. That's a good win for Sleeping Giants there.
I would think so. Who's Sleeping Giants?
Those are the guys they specialize in this kind of activity, in pressuring sponsors to drop controversial loudmouth hosts. And they're great. They've done a fantastic job. From out of nowhere, really.
I think he also referred to Iraqis as subhumans. The controversial host suggested in December that immigrants made America poorer and dirtier, which drew a rebuke from Pacific Life Insurance, who said it was pausing its advertising. MyPillow is the largest advertiser on the show in 2019.
Okay. Well,
the company estimates Carlson's show earned $28 million of advertising revenue so far in 2019. So there's that. Pirro, to a lesser extent, there's less famous names there.
Yeah,
Novo Nordisk, Let Go, and NerdWallet are removing or pausing their ads.
All right. Nerd's wallet gone. Nerd's pillow stays.
MyPillow stays.
Right.
Yeah. So there's that.
Nerd pillow.
Let's see.
I'm going to start that.
Yeah,
I don't know what it would be, but
so some rules issues here. Oh, before we do that, let's also mention and hat tip to Gavin Newsom, who's suspending the death penalty in California, calling it discriminatory and immoral, and granting reprieves to the 737 condemned inmates on the nation's largest death row.
Okay. Well, nation's largest everything. Okay. Nerd executions off as well.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about process here and then process overseas.
All right.
Okay. So, process here. Tomorrow is the vote in the Senate on Trump's border emergency, and 4 Republicans have said they're going to vote with the Democrats on that, but Trump is putting an incredible amount of pressure on them, calling them disloyal, and he's trying to limit the number of GOP votes that are out there. And, of course, there are dueling stories on this. One of them said last-minute machinations make it sound like maybe they'll add some amendments, and then what they'll do is they'll say, yes, well, we'll vote this down, but we'll add something that says, in the future, Trump, you can't do this. And maybe that'll satisfy people.
Okay, yeah. Trump can do it, but no other presidents can. I get it.
On the other hand, this piece from Politico, GOP running out of options on Trump's border emergency. The Senate parliamentarian is the subheading here. How often does the parliamentarian make it into the subheading? The Senate parliamentarian is unlikely to allow Republicans to significantly amend a resolution blocking the president's emergency declaration. And as an amateur who reads these stories and talks with experts like David, I look at this and say, this is totally wrong. There's no such thing as a Senate parliamentarian allowing anything. They advise the chair. If the chair doesn't like them, the chair can fire them. The whole premise of the article is stupid.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to them initially. Like, okay, well, will you allow this? No. All right, well, then you're not the parliamentarian. That can happen. What more frequently happens is they say, oh, darn it. And then,
right, and that's what will happen this time. I mean, there's no political win for obviously trying to rig the system to get your vote when the parliamentarian said what you're doing is without precedent. It looks horrible. It's already looking horrible, and everybody's staring at you. These things work best when nobody's watching.
Yes, that's true.
And everybody's going to be watching.
All these stories would be better, and they would be clarified by, at the minimum, running a sidebar. Use the same one over and over again. It's fine. A disclaimer of sorts. It says, by the way, what we really mean here is, yes, they're asking the parliamentarian. Yeah, they usually listen to the parliamentarian, but ultimately the responsibility lies with your senators when they decide to overrule them or they decide to, accept it. That's the norm. That's what usually happens. When you see them ignoring it, that's the exception to the rule, but that's something you should take note of. But also, whenever they say, oh, our hands are tied, we can't do that thing that you really wanted us to do, you should be aware that they really could if they wanted to.
They just, on the merits, don't think that it's a win for them. So, again, here's one of those rare cases where they're actually talking to and about the Senate parliamentarian. So the article goes on to say, the Senate parliamentarian is expected to allow few, if any, significant amendments at a majority threshold. According to people familiar with conversations with parliamentary staff, some GOP senators like Pat Toomey have been seeking to modify the resolution to profess alarm at the situation at the southern border and proclaim support for a wall, even as senators pan the president's end run around Congress. But because the House resolution is written so simply, in other words, they did it right, there are a few ways to alter the resolution through, quote, germane, end quote, amendments. We've talked about germane on the show and what that means. It means what you want it to mean, but that's up to the parliamentarian.
My favorite
and the parliamentarian has made it clear that substantive votes are unlikely to be allowed.
Yeah. Well done on the part of the housekeeping thing simple. Ironic to be watching small government conservative Republicans who think all bills should be 3 pages or less say that what I need to do here is add some amendments to this 70-word bill about lamenting things and professing alarm about things. You want to issue a press statement that says you profess alarm at the situation, but you can't pass up the opportunity to do your duty as a co-equal branch of government. Do it. You can even do it in 1 page on your own. It doesn't belong in the bill, and it's not really germane. No. So, good job, parliamentarian.
John Thune, they're applying a pretty tight filter. There's a few amendments that could meet the germaneness test. I didn't know that was the thing. But there were others that don't do it. It's almost impossible to write a germane amendment under whatever their germane rules are, said Rand Paul.
Yeah, it is. because it's simple, and Mr. Libertarian now is upset. This guy is the worst libertarian in the world.
Right. Now, here's the nut graph here.
Yes.
Republicans could try to appeal any parliamentarian ruling they disagree with, but it's unclear whether there's an appetite for it.
Yes.
That's the point.
Yes. And it's fancy words. There aren't the votes, is what it's saying. They could appeal it, except they would have to do it in public, and they are afraid to do that.
Right.
There you go.
So Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said the Senate will vote on the House resolution Thursday. The Kentucky Republican, in this case McConnell, not the other Kentucky Republican, Rand Paul, the fake libertarian. Right. McConnell said he, quote, may well, end quote, support amending the National Emergencies Act, but that any changes would be prospective and wouldn't apply to the current situation. But they don't know what they're doing yet. It's tomorrow.
Okay. So today is day 15 since they were handed the resolution.
Right. And, Rand Paul says it'll probably be a straight-up vote. I think he'll get around mid-50s to high 50s as far as disapproval numbers. Trump has become increasingly interested in the upcoming vote, tweeting in support of party unity and urging Republicans to stick together. Yeah. Now, the problem is that if he hadn't interfered, it would just be a bit of a slap in the hand, and that would be the end of it.
Yeah.
But if he's taken the stance of trying to whip the vote in his favor and then loses, it's even more of an embarrassment, particularly if they get 60.
I mean, he was better off sticking with the original position of, I don't care, do what you want, I'm vetoing it.
Exactly. But that did not happen. Meanwhile, simultaneously, Senate Rules Chair Roy Blunt says McConnell has 51 votes to go nuclear and force through changes aimed at expediting action on Trump nominees.
Aha.
But Blunt also says leader may try over the next 2 weeks to negotiate compromise with Democrats and make changes with 60 votes. So Blunt is threatening the Democrats that you better change the rules with us or we'll change the rules against you.
Okay. Even where is that? Does that appear in this?
I think so, but I'll give it to you anyway. This is from some tweets here. Okay. I believe we have the votes to do this with 51, but we'd still rather do it with 60.
That's interesting. That's Blunt, chairman of the Rules Committee, because changing the rules requires 67. But don't tell the chairman of the Rules Committee. No, I'm telling you,
he's threatening.
Yeah, he's threatening, and he says, I'd rather do it, he said, we can do it with 51, but I'd rather do it with 60. Well, I mean, I'd rather do it with 195. 60 is not a relevant number to a rules change question. Yeah. And he's the chairman of the Rules Committee.
Right.
All right, whatever, dummy. All right.
Okay, there's that. Now there's the overseas stuff.
Yes. What?
And, of course, there's the Brexit vote.
Where?
And what happened is that Theresa May lost yet another Brexit vote. And unlike previous prime ministers, she doesn't have enough shame to resign. The UK MPs vote against Theresa May's revised EU withdrawal deal by 391 to 242. They've got 17 days to figure it out. They don't have a plan. They don't know what to do with the Irish border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. And that's really the sticking point here.
Yes.
And I asked some of my friends on Twitter today to help explain this to me. So I have the simple answer and the complicated answer. Which one would you like first?
Simple.
Simple. Okay. Damian Walter on Twitter says, to understand Brexit, whenever you see the word Brexit, just replace it with teleport Britain to Alpha Centauri.
That's not that simple.
The British people have voted to teleport Britain to Alpha Centauri.
Okay.
Teleport Britain to Alpha Centauri means exactly that. Theresa May's plan to teleport Britain to Alpha Centauri has been voted down as possibly unrealistic.
I got
the
you
EU
now.
is open to ideas from the UK government about its plans to teleport Britain to Alpha Centauri, but will not compromise its place on planet Earth. Those bastards. Britain won 2 world wars, so it's silly to suggest we can't teleport Britain to Alpha Centauri. In fact, Jacob Rees-Mogg will personally teleport Britain to Alpha Centauri, although his investment fund will remain in Bahrain.
All right,
okay?
I gotcha.
You remoaners need to suck it up and get with the plan to teleport Britain to Alpha Centauri. No, of course, there won't be any air to breathe, you wimps. Right? You get the picture?
Yes.
It was like totally not possible, but at least that puts in perspective. So here's the more complicated version.
Okay.
By a poster named Donina. I've been thinking for a while about how the Brexit thing is very much like the repeal and replace Affordable Care Act debacle. Basically, The Brexiters campaigned on repeal and replace EU.
Yes.
They won, just like the Republicans did, because everybody who's not an expert could imagine replace any way they liked it. No matter what EU law said, and member states can't negotiate deals unilaterally, and various other constraints, voters could just fantasize for Brexit to mean whatever they wanted it to mean. And the Leave campaign exploited that. However, when the time came to formulate what replace actually was, then everything hit the fan. Even without the Leave coalition, there's no consensus. Some want full repeal and no replace. Some want a Norway-style replace. Others want something entirely different. What Theresa May's been doing all this time is to get her coalition of MPs to vote for a series of skinny repeal bills and trust her she'll figure it out in the end. The deal out of conference, though, to keep the analogy going, has no majority in the parliament, and that's what happened today. So she kept telling him, we'll get it done, we'll get it done, we'll get it done. And then a bill came out, and there's nothing in it that helps, and so they voted it down. Things are more complicated than the Affordable Care Act repeal and replace because there is the European Union and EU laws to contend with and a parliamentary system as opposed to the U.S. system. But basically, Leavers can't agree on replace. And unfortunately, the default now is no-deal Brexit, which is equivalent to an abrupt and instantaneous full repeal of the Affordable Care Act, not limited to health care, no replacement.
I see.
And one more thing, differently than the Affordable Care Act repeal battle, Jeremy Corbyn has been ambiguous in his views, basically playing the same game as a Medicare for all or bust fanatic, thinking that total collapse of the UK government will benefit his party politically. And that's why there's a Labour split. Some Labour MPs got fed up with this and said, no way, we want nothing to do with this anymore. But that's one way to understand Brexit as a U.S. citizen involved in healthcare policy. P.S. May also has her Freedom Caucus to contend with. It's the DUP-ERG folks that keep her coalition in the majority. Today they voted no because her repeal or replace doesn't go far enough.
Oh.
Right? So basically that's what's going on. I think there's another vote tonight about no-deal Brexit. And do we just go ahead and do that? And I suspect that'll fail too. And here's the thing. Maybe the only way out of this is to go back and do another referendum. It was stupid to do one in the first place, but maybe it has to be undone. But the Tories don't want that because they'll lose.
Yeah, maybe.
Even though that's what the country needs to do.
What if two
This is one of those party
here?
over country things.
Oh, well, we know about that.
We do. So anyway, that's like a quick study of like what's going on down there.
Yeah, and I guess everywhere. That is amazing. What the corner they've painted themselves into here. Okay, like I said, I think at the beginning of this whole Brexit mess, I proposed the idea that we stop using British voiceovers to sound smart in American advertising. And I think maybe this will solidify it. Finally, we finally get our day in the court of public opinion on that one. Okay.
Right. So, and then this last one here in the Washington Press, and Manafort hasn't been sentenced yet, but might be by the end of your show.
All right.
New York's Attorney General just opened a death penalty probe of the Trump Organization. By the way, I'm giving you Zoe Tillman's Twitter feed because she's going step by step on what's going on there. So if you want to peek at it and see what's going on with Manafort, anytime during your show, you can.
I will.
New York Attorney General just opened a, quote, death penalty, end quote, probe of the Trump Organization. Apparently that death penalty thing has some basis in law.
I guess you mean judicially, closing this
what she's doing
corporation, yes. Okay.
Is looking at the Trump Organization, and if she finds that it's irredeemable, I guess she gets to dissolve it.
Yes.
That's how I'm reading this.
Right. Nobody gets the death penalty. It would be a great idea.
You're not killing anybody. But, of course, corporations are people too, my friend.
That's true. So there you have it. We are dissolving them in acid.
New York's Attorney General Letitia James just opened a sweeping investigation into the fraud and misdealings of the Trump Organization that its former executive vice president revealed in his congressional testimony last month.
That's true. He was that, wasn't he? Okay.
Michael Cohen was an executive in the Trump Organization for a decade, starting in 2006, before resigning to become the president's personal lawyer. And his testimony to the House Oversight Committee last month revealed numerous threads of criminal behavior at his former employee's business that prompted a new investigation. Unlike the other 17 investigations into Donald Trump, this new probe is focused squarely on a soft target, the president's family real estate business. New York's new probe could result in state equivalent to the death penalty, as the Times reports. This is over Deutsche Bank loans, financing of 4 major Trump Organization projects, failed effort to buy the Buffalo Bills. It's a civil investigation, not a criminal one. And dissolution for a corporation is analogous to the death penalty and only applies to the most serious cases, as Fordham law professor Jed Sugarman explained in the Times opinion section. New York's highest court has described this remedy of civil dissolution as a judgment of corporate death. And for the state to invoke such a corporate death penalty, the corporation's transgressions must not be merely incidental, but material and serious, and such as to harm or menace the public welfare. So I suppose if, the New York State court decided that your scheme of rebottling polluted water as baby formula made you a lot of money, they could not only fine you, they could cease and desist you by dissolving your corporation because you're hurting people.
You could probably dissolve it in the water I've been bottling.
Exactly. So it's a twofer. If state civil investigation turned up more evidence of criminal fraud, state and federal prosecutors could use those findings to indict the Trump Organization and its officials, including Mr. Weisselberg. And crucially, Trump can't use his pardon powers here.
All right. Is this all in Zoe Tillman's
No, this
timeline?
is in the Washington Press piece I'm about to give you, which describes a number of things going on. So that's all in the background there. So those last two things are the last two things we talked about.
Got it.
So that's it. You got 5, 6 minutes, 7 minutes for the break, and you can talk about whatever you want.
Enough minutes. Okay, very good. Thanks very much, and thank you for sending that one along here. I'm trying to keep track of everything today so everyone can read these articles later. Since we had to lightning round them, you'll want to comb through them for the good stuff, like Roy Blunt misstating the procedure.
Yeah, for example. Okay. Or an actual discussion with the Senate parliamentarian.
Yeah. It has to happen
your
through
listeners
staff.
are set up for this. They know exactly what we're talking about. If you're regular listeners, it's just nice to see in print.
Right, because we're just, pulling it out of thin air for you every morning. And you got to trust the print journalists, I guess, who probably got into their schools legitimately to give you the real truth about it. Oh, okay.
Time for me to go.
Yes, so bribe your way into obedience school there. Greg, okay?
Okay.
Very good.
I'll see you.
Great.
Bye.
Thanks very much. Okay, see you, Abby. I hope that's the Chewy.com package showing up at the door. I don't know. All right, thanks, Greg. We'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow being Thursday. So we got another round with you tomorrow, and then Friday we can catch up on all the nitty-gritty details and things we had to skip over just to get you a basic idea of what's in the news today. Let's see. Let me keep my, if I can keep Skype up here and see who's sending me signals here. Okay. I guess Armando has sent me what I don't know whether this was going to be the basis of his rant that he offered us yesterday, but we'll update you on this one because this is a part of the developing story. Pelosi thanked by Trump. She said of course, she did the whole "he's not worth impeaching" thing, and we bypassed that largely yesterday. And Trump's reaction to that, tweeting. When did he do the tweet? Let's click through to it. Is it early this morning, right? Okay. In the dark, tweeting, "I greatly appreciate Nancy Pelosi's statement against impeachment," which is an odd thing to say because the full statement against impeachment is he's such an imbecile and he can't do anything right and he's not worth impeachment. I don't know exactly how she meant to make that sound, but it wasn't supposed to be a compliment, but he greatly appreciates it because she put his name in the newspaper. That's enough for him. So he says, I greatly appreciate it, but everyone must remember the minor fact that I never did anything wrong. The capital E economy and capital U unemployment, the economy and unemployment are the best ever. Military, capital M, and vets, capital V, are great. And many other successes How do you impeach, he continues in the next tweet, a man who is considered by many to be the president with the most successful first 2 years in history, especially when he has done nothing wrong and impeachment is for, quote, high crimes and misdemeanors, unquote. Well, man, I don't know. What am I supposed to say about that? I mean, it's an extraordinarily dumb reaction to a not really very interesting comment that I have zero interest in from Pelosi in its substance, certainly. Okay, I mean, the guy's an idiot, and I don't think he could prove it anymore. One, then by missing the point of Pelosi's statement, and then two, what the follow-up said. What kind of, only Donald Trump could have followed this up by then saying, look at all the things I did that are so great. There's the economy and unemployment. Okay, I mean, what? Are you sure? What about military and vets? They're great. And some number of other successes, which is a huge number. How do you impeach a guy? And then, of course, in true Trumpian fashion, how do you impeach someone who's the most successful, best president ever, judged by everyone, including Alpha Centaurians, as being the most fantastic, not only president, but person, and may I say, lover as well. And of all time, I don't know where this guy gets it, but I hope it's returnable. I suppose that's all I have to say about that. All right, time for our musical exit. Our 10 o'clock hour, of course, coming up. And we'll hope to hear from Joan McCarter in our second hour. And it will just be difficult to know when she's telling us that. Oh, she sometimes actually alerts me via Twitter, which also is going to be rather difficult to read. But I trust that we will. And if the phone just rings, it rings. We're okay with that. We do things nice and loose on this show. We'll be back in a minute to do more loose things. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. All right, let's see what's going on here. Let me dive into what I've got in Pocket, and let me keep open what's going on in Twitter, just to see if I can remind myself of some of the things I thought were of interest this morning, lightning round style. Let's see. We'll keep things open on one end here for Joan. And I'm not certain, very often we hear from her about quarter past. Actually, Armando, I suppose if you were interested in a mini rant on Pelosi, we might as well open the door for it, if only because I refused to do one yesterday. But that doesn't mean there aren't people who want to hear one and want to hear one from you. So, door's open. Just by way of establishing the premise, the politics of Pelosi statement is bad. That's true, and I get it. But I can't. I didn't want to burn too many calories on it, although it makes for good exercise. Armando, hi. Good morning. How are you?
Hey, two things. Number one, I'll mini the rant, but Manafort is being sentenced right now.
Oh, okay. They're actually working it.
So let's keep an eyeball on that.
All right. Let's take one of his.
That's right. Anyway, the reason I give you the Trump thing isn't because it makes sense or it's stupid he really nailed it. It's about how I don't understand why Pelosi said anything.
Yes.
And everyone said, look how savvy she set him up. She didn't set anybody up. It was dumb.
I don't what can I take to the bank here? I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't understand. And it says, well, she didn't rule anything out. Well, yeah, she's going to have to flip-flop later if she reopens her openness to impeachment. And then she got all the House chairmen to start saying the same thing. It was deflating. Here's the impact, the one impact, because I don't know that it has a substantive impact. It has a political impact, which ends up being substantive, which is you get your people who are excited that you're going to hold them to account, and they're all thinking, oh, okay, here we go again.
Yeah.
And by the way, we went through this once before, and I know you were pretty vocal about it, when the torture.
Yep.
We're gonna look forward, not backwards. So people are already a little gun shy. You know, she's earned her stripes early, but I don't see where this was a necessary or helpful thing to do. Why does she have to say anything about whether she's for or against impeachment?
I don't know.
Greg has been defending it. It gives cover. It gives who cover? Who did it give cover to, and for what?
Yeah, I'm not so sure, but I get the idea that you might convince yourself that I could give cover as Speaker, and now when members are asked about impeachment, they can point to the Speaker and say, it doesn't look likely. But I don't understand how that's
covered. I'd
cover.
love to, but the Speaker said no. I don't understand that
That's
either.
not real helpful, right? So, I mean, it doesn't... I guess if you could believe that now reporters will be like, oh, well, let's not ask our local representative or any representative that we see in the hallway about impeachment because they'll just refer to the Speaker anyway, and that's boring, so I'll just stop asking. I don't think that's really going to happen.
Neither do I. And I think the question now becomes, do you agree with the Speaker?
Yeah. And so people will be looking for, I mean, you'll have a certain number of people who say, I regret it, but yes. And then you'll have a number of people saying, I support the Speaker. She knows what she's doing. And then there'll be about a third of the caucus will say, I really reserve judgment. I mean, I really think he deserves impeachment.
Meaning we were where we were before, but now we have a whole little mini brouhaha because she said it. So, again, my question to everybody who says this was the right thing to do, how did it help? Who did it help?
Yeah, I mean, you know what's a better response in that? And I guess she just doesn't like this. Well, she doesn't like responding by saying things are either out of her control or she doesn't know or whatever. But
let's wait for the facts to come in.
They could have done that. I mean, you just say, I'm giving you the analog to I don't comment on ongoing investigations. That's it. What do you mean you don't? You're the Speaker of the House. So what are you going to do? Make up a quote? I'm telling you, I'm not saying anything.
I'm going to say, let's wait. Let's wait for the work that the committees do. We're a long way away from even talking about impeachment. We just started the investigations. Let's see what turns up.
Yes.
This morning, I didn't totally agree with Warren's answer, but she said, well, let's see what Mueller has to say, yada, yada.
Yeah.
And then we'll know what to do. There's a million ways to deal with this if you just want to push it back. The way not to do it, in my view, if you feel like you have to say something, is to say, no, I'm not for impeachment.
I guess.
And then have this whole, but if everybody agrees, and if the Republicans want to do it, or Sean Hannity's calling for impeachment, which was what Brad Sherman said, it got worse. It's just, and here's the thing, I'm the idiot. I put this on Twitter. I'm the idiot that suggested to Marcus that we send roses to Pelosi.
Oh.
Because I like Pelosi. I think she is the perfect person for Speaker. But at the same time, I can say what she did on this point was a mistake.
I don't see why
Both
you can't say
things
that.
can be true. That she made a mistake and she's a great speaker. Both things can be true.
Yeah. I can't disagree with that. I mean, could there be a better one? There could be. I don't know who it is. I have no basis for identifying that person. But, they make mistakes. I think this is a couple in a row.
Everybody makes mistakes. My God. I'll make 22 today, at least.
Yes, right.
And I'm not great at anything. But the point being, it's not terrible to say that somebody made a mistake.
No.
And I don't know how meaningful it is. I just said, you know what? I don't like it. I don't like it in this way because it's not even so much the politics because there's going to be 8 million stories before we get back to this one. And my notion of this is it's actually an important principle.
Yeah.
That really overtakes whatever the minor political fallout's going to be. Because if we're ruling out impeachment or even an impeachment investigation until the other party calls for it,
Yes.
That means we're ruling out impeachment. You might as well just take it out of the Constitution.
Yeah. Yes. That's basically it. I mean, the other party, I mean, even in, I guess, the closest we've ever come to a modern era, well-grounded impeachment that didn't actually result in an impeachment, the Nixon hearings, for the longest time, the play was the same. It set up exactly as this one did. Republicans are never going to go for that. They're just not.
In his State of the Union in 1974, Richard Nixon said 1 year of Watergate is enough.
Yeah.
Not 20% of the country was for impeaching him in June of 1974. 2 months before he resigned.
Yeah.
If the Speaker of the House of the Watergate era took Pelosi's position seriously, if she really believes it,
yes,
there never would have been an impeachment hearing.
Probably true. All right. Well, that's definitely well worth noting, and I think we've made that point in the past, but worth reiterating. And
it's just 2 days ago, and it became a constant, and everybody got all upset because how dare you say Nancy Pelosi made a mistake?
Yeah,
it's like because she's not perfect.
I guess that's it. All right, let me see if I can. You know what? Joan is ready to join us. As a matter of fact, let me
move on to her segment, which is much more important and interesting. So she may not know that Nancy Pelosi just said that she will not consider a bill to amend the National Emergencies Act, which was Mike Pence's offer yesterday to Republicans in the Senate.
Okay. She may not know. Let me see if I can.
Let me violate the Constitution this one time, and I promise I won't do it again.
He's good for it. I am sure.
He's good for it.
All right, let me see if I can. I might be able to just add her to the call if I press this button.
Okay.
Or I may have to call her in order to do that. Let's see. Oh, maybe not. Armando? Let's see. Joan.
Still there?
There you are. Let's see if Armando is still here. No, I think I cut him off. All right, let me see. Maybe I can add him.
It's actually calling in to agree with him.
Yeah, all right. Well, that would be historic or something. So let me see if what. Let me see. Can I just play? They've rearranged the buttons. Let me see if I can.
Hate it when they do that.
Yeah, let's see. I wonder what'll happen here if I do this. Let's see. Maybe it'll ring on his end, and we'll see what happens. Oh, maybe Armando. No, okay. He may have walked away, or he may. There he is.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
You know how these buttons go, Armando. Okay, now I think I have both of you on. Hello, everyone.
I actually agree with Armando for the same reasons.
Ta-da!
Ta-da!
Yeah, I know that's a miracle. What do you agree with me on?
Pelosi on impeachment.
Oh, okay.
On the Constitution, whether or not she likes it, whether or not he's worth it, of course he's worth it. Every president's worth it. That's why the thing exists.
The country's worth it is actually the obvious response to that statement. Says,
yeah.
Listen, he may not be worth it, but we are, and he's endangering us. He's got the nuclear codes. I didn't like anything about the statement. I didn't think it made sense, and I don't know why she did it, but they clearly decided to do it because then Schiff sort of said the same thing, and then everybody started saying the same thing, and it's like, what's the upside to saying all these things? Suppose at the end of the day, they make a political decision in September that, look, there's a year to go to the election. We don't see the political upside, or the political downside's too high. And, even though it's unprincipled for us to not pursue it, we think that we're going to do it that way. Okay, so then you start spinning it. Why is she doing it in March? I don't even understand what the thought process was for doing it. It was a mistake. Hopefully not a big one, and hopefully not a meaningful one, but it was a mistake in all ways. So
I agree. And I was disappointed. It would be so easy to say, look, the investigation's ongoing. It's too soon to say, definitely, but yeah.
Yeah, she had statements like that before. She could have just said it again. So I don't understand any of it.
I don't either.
I don't know. I guess she was just asked in an interview and felt on the spot and blurted out. I mean, I don't know what she thinks that means.
No, she was volunteering it. She said, I'm going to make news for you.
Oh, okay. Exactly. Well, I guess so. She went in with that. All right, well, she went in with a terrible plan. That was, I don't even really have a guess at what it means to say he's not worth it. That I can't make sense out of it. I don't want to do it, or I don't think anything good will come out of it, or he's not that bad, all of which are terrible statements, but I understand what they mean. He's not worth it means like I don't even understand how that. What am I supposed to make of that? The Constitution doesn't apply to him because he's too dumb? Is that a good thing to say? A bad thing?
I mean, you know, if she's doing it with some kind of psyop against Trump personally, if she's trying
that was the other excuse.
Dig at him psychologically by saying that.
Maybe, and I guess if that's going to work on anybody, I guess it would work on him. Like everybody else says, that's not even a sensible statement. You're dumber than I am for saying that, but he can't. Oh no, I'm the record breaker of dumb. I'm going to outdumb you on this. So thank you. And then, in fact, he does look dumber than she did by thanking her for that. But I have not got anything from it. So, all right, he's not worth it. He doesn't enter into it. He's not worth keeping as president. It's a terrible idea. I don't care if you have the votes or not. He's done these things. Just tell me I don't have the votes. I'm used to that.
This is why we have impeachments. Yeah, well, point at McConnell. You know, we really need to put a lot more effort into making McConnell the source of all evil in the nation.
Yes.
He is.
Right. And I mean, there's the real problem is that, he's not worth it because the Senate will never go for it because it's full of Republicans and they're led by a terrible, terrible man, and we should be yelling at him. And instead, here we are saying, you know who's stupid? Pelosi. You know, who's not stupid. It's a stupid thing that got said, but that's a different story.
She's not stupid, and I've been very impressed with her thus far.
Yeah, it's not been a really good, week and a half, honestly.
No.
But, all right. Well, again, even if if you were Seth Moulton, let's say, and you took this as, I told you she's a terrible leader. And then the answer would be, okay. And you have 200 plus to choose from. I don't know if anybody could hold up a name for me where I would say, yeah, they're ready. Absolutely. I'll take them as a substitute.
No, it's not ending her speakership kind of stupid, but it was just unnecessary.
Yes.
And disappointing.
Yeah, and annoying because we've been here before, and all the things that were good reason not to say such a silly thing about George W. Bush the first time around, because you'll only make it worse next time there's a Republican president, because they're not going to ratchet back. You're not going to get a more moderate Republican next time. Even though George W. Bush, we couldn't envision who could possibly be more capricious and have less regard for American institutions than George W. Bush. I can't even imagine it. Oh, well, we found one. Well, surely this can't be topped. Okay, sure. And then Tucker Carlson will be running for president. We'll say, what? That guy's crazy. And then, okay. Here we are. But
the other part of it is letting goddamn Newt Gingrich win.
How did he get in this? What?
By turning impeachment into a partisan political tool.
I see. Yes.
By devaluing it, by detoothing it, essentially.
I guess that's it. You're right. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about him purposefully for a long time. But yeah, I mean, he's turning impeachment into a farce, and I guess he has, because even the Democrats who want to impeach people for good reason now say, well, because it's a farce, it's not worth it.
No, it's not a partisan thing. It's saving the nation.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I guess there's so many things what are the other things that the Founding Fathers put together that aren't worth anything? Does anybody know?
Emoluments clause?
Right. I guess that's true, right? That's the next one. There's not much, I guess, worth saving. Scrap the whole thing. Who cares? That's bad news. All right.
Power of the purse?
Yeah, that's gone too. Yeah. Cruel and unusual punishment prohibitions. The establishment clause, that's out the window too.
Well, this is getting depressing.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'm a constitutional something-ist. Depressionist, I guess.
You're in good company with the two of us.
Okay. Ugh. Wow.
Any
all
other
right.
rants, Armando?
I see that. I'm actually more a question than a rant. That McConnell's whole nuking the 30-hour filibuster is out there again.
Yes.
It is indeed.
And what's the... David, you got to take me back to 2005. Does it take 60 votes to change the rules or 51?
To change the rules, this we'll call it a term of art. To change the wording of the standing rules of the Senate takes it takes 51 votes to change the rules, but it takes 67 votes to invoke cloture on the motion to change the rules.
All right, so it takes 67 votes.
To change the rules, as opposed to establish a new precedent interpreting the rules backwards or upside down, which can be done with the nuclear option in 51 votes, or a majority.
Right, so they would do what, presumably he'll do what Reid did with the circuit court judges in 2013 or whatever that was.
And what McConnell did last year on Supreme Court justices.
Right. So he'll just do that. He'll just do that again. He won't change the rules. He'll just establish a new precedent.
Yeah. This one will be, it just occurred to me, this one will have to be a little more blatant in that, let's see. It was pretty bold, of course.
More blatant than Supreme Court 51 vote?
Yeah. Well, the Supreme Court one, I guess, rests on changing an interpretation of the interpretation. More blatant than even than Reid's, which, I guess what Reid mechanically did was say, it's our interpretation that cloture on executive nominations and judicial nominations minus the Supreme Court require a mere majority to invoke cloture. And so notwithstanding the written rules, we say this is how it should be interpreted with respect to cloture on the following items, which the rules don't actually mention any distinction between nominations and legislation. This
in terms of debate time and cloture.
Right, but there's there's no mention of it whatsoever. It's just all cloture will be handled this way, presumably. Right. And what he's saying now is the rules say when you have cloture, you get 30 additional hours of debate. And I guess they're just saying 30 means 2 with respect to the following things. And I don't know, it just seems like there's less. I guess you could certainly see it as exactly the same. But I don't see how you get to 2 hours without actually just erasing and rewriting the rules.
Yeah.
But I guess
now that you say that,
I guess you can just do anything. I don't know. My interpretation of 30 is 2. Oh, that's a bad interpretation. But do you have the votes for it? Yes. Oh, all right, it wins.
But just 2 on these specific things and not on everything else.
Yeah, I guess that's basically true. Right. I guess it's not that far removed from saying, well, my interpretation of 3/5 is actually 1/2. Okay, I guess that's also wrong. But I don't know. This one seems pretty sure. The substance of the change, I think, is not actually that terrible one. It's turn comes at a bad time, and tactically speaking, I wish it happening, I suppose, because of how abusive they're being of the nominations process in general. But I've never thought that 30 hours post-cloture debate was really necessary for
it hasn't made any difference. It's just that he's going to jam a lot more through a lot more quickly.
Yes. So
the whole problem for us at this point is there's 16 months or whatever still of this combination. So I don't know what we can do. I mean, look, the executive branch is going to do what it does, but the judges retire, and he's going to fill them. He's going to fill them with the Rows of the world, and Susan Collins. By the way, is Susan Collins voting for Rao?
I believe so. Last I saw, she hasn't said anything about Rao.
Yeah, she loves them all. I don't think she ever votes against them. So, I mean, I don't know what to do. But look, it's
okay.
It's
so here's an interesting. What do we do after the fact? I'm already giving up. There's nothing really smooth or anybody can do now. What do we do, provided we have the Senate and the White House in 2021?
Well, we do what you wrote about yesterday. We have to expand the court system. There's just no two ways about it. It's what we have to do. I don't understand that people don't understand what we lost in 2016. I didn't care. I don't care what you thought about Hillary. I really don't. I don't care if you thought she was a criminal. The courts, and there was no. Listen, I promised David I don't talk about this on his show, and I don't write about it at Daily Kos. But Bernie Sanders' behavior after the last primary was inexcusable because of the courts, and now we don't. Now I hope he doesn't want to even abolish the filibuster.
Yeah.
He's an institutionalist revolutionary, apparently.
Okay, I don't want to talk about Bernie.
Okay.
Because I'm more interested in what we can do in 2021 if we get the Senate, and what possibility is there for going back and looking at the process by which some of these people got in to their seats and say that's illegitimate, and we need to look at taking them out.
Well,
not taking them out in the violent sense, taking them out in the impeachment
out
sense.
of the judicial branch. Okay.
I think that's the harder way to go procedurally. I think it's the reverse. We're going to have to outnumber them. There's no limitations on the number of judges on the Supreme Court or any court.
Yeah.
So, and all it takes is simple legislation to expand all levels of the court. I think to impeachment requires 67. I think if you abolish the filibuster, you're at majority and the presidency. Now, everyone's going to say, well, then why aren't the Republicans doing it now? The reason the Republicans aren't doing it now is because they don't want us to do it, because they know if they did it, we'd do it. And, of course, if we do it, they get to do it. But the whole system's blown up. We have to re-establish norms once we're back on a level playing field. They broke all the norms, and now they have all the advantage to arguing for the norms, because once they broke and took the advantage, of course they want the norms. We have to rebalance the playing field, and then we can come up with new norms. But to let them break the rules, cheat, get the advantage, then say play by the rules, no.
I would just very like to come up with a new norm that gets Brett Kavanaugh off the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's tough going, and there's not too many ways around that other than impeaching him, because we're kind of stuck with the Supreme Court.
We're kind of stuck there.
So there you expand it. I guess the only other thing I can think of with respect to the lower courts is how about a brand new Judiciary Act that either abolishes the circuits or removes their jurisdiction and replaces them with a circuit A through, P, and just divide the country up and say, we're looking for new judges to fill up our new circuits, some of whom we may draw from the old circuits, but in the meantime, the current circuits lose all their jurisdiction. You could try that. You got 2 minutes to think about it, and we'll be right back. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, with a brand new interruption to say thanks to all of you who support the show. Remember when I told you that our average monthly donation was about $7, for which you were getting 2 great hours of news and entertainment 5 days a week, and how that came out to about 70 cents an hour? That's a pretty good deal, except it's wrong. The math actually works out closer to 17 cents an hour. It is hard to beat a deal like that, and even harder to send your kids to college on it. Thankfully, Patreon.com makes it easy to make that work. Patreon, Patreon.com, is the simple, secure way to make recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Just search for me or the show name on the site, and they make it easy to crowdfund the show so that the power of our numbers can keep the show going for just a few bucks a month. Once again, thanks so much for all your support. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We still have Armando and Joan both with us, and it's still rankling, I guess. Pelosi and the courts. So let's see, where do we want to start?
I
go
can
ahead.
praise Pelosi. Here's a good statement on the National Emergencies Act thing. This is the quote, apparently. Republican senators are proposing new legislation to allow the president to violate the Constitution just this once in order to give themselves cover. The House will not take up this legislation to give President Trump a pass. But we also want impeachment. But okay, that was me. I said that part at the end. She did.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I'm good. We're not taking it up. Hooray. That's good.
Yes. Anybody screwing McConnell, I appreciate. So go get him, Nancy. Go get him.
Well, right.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole. This is the point about being different. That's what made her other statement so jarring. This has been her line.
Yeah.
Throughout, and then she just sort of backed away from it on impeachment, which I don't know. You know what? I will say this: you never know what's happening in the caucus, and maybe she assuaged some of the new freshmen and like this.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe she needs to do something for them since she beat up on them so much over the motion to recommit. Maybe this was Hoyer and Clyburn talking on impeachment. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
Anyway, that was a good statement. She's not giving them any cover on that. And I assume the vote will be, so I don't know, maybe the Republican senators say, look, I voted to stop it after this, so now I can vote against this particular overturning of the emergency. But I don't know. I mean, again, I'm actually very curious to see Susan Collins, who I don't know what do you think she's doing politically? Because I want to beat her as much as I want to beat Trump. Really, I know they're different, and one's really.
No, I'm totally there. Sure. Collins is up there with McConnell with me for.
I don't know.
Politically destroying.
Do we have a shot at McConnell?
She's trying to make sure that Paul LePage doesn't primary her.
Oh, is that it?
And she's also trying to pretend like she's doing things for moderates in Maine. She's trying to run both the primary and general elections at the same time.
I don't get it in this sense because, for better or worse, and I say this to Democrats and Republicans, the 2020 election, even more so than 2018, will be a referendum on Donald Trump. I think in the primary, the Democratic candidates are doing what they do with regard to Trump. They don't talk about him so much because everybody knows they hate Trump. again, except for Bernie, who's talking a lot about Trump, and rightly so. It's smart of him. But I just think that whatever race you're in, whatever district you're in, whatever you're in, the votes are going to be cast based on Donald Trump. I mean, and that's, I think, inescapable. But no, I don't know how many people agree with me on that, but I think that's the case.
I agree.
There's
I
one.
agree.
Right. I think a lot of people probably do.
I just say, we need to talk about health care. I mean, we do.
Well,
and it's good to talk about health care and the courts and everything else we're talking about, the important issues, H.R. 1, all of the stuff that's going up for a vote in the House and gets passed by the House, which, of course, goes and dies a death in the Senate. None of that's going to pass. Just like if you accept the thinking, Trump's not going to be removed from office by a Republican Senate. But the Republican Senate's not going to pass any of these other things that you're passing. So, in essence, it's all political.
Right.
And so, to me, one of the things that what makes not saying these are impeachment hearings, but not foreclosing impeachment, is it keeps a higher focus on Trump and his misdeeds. Joan talked about the emoluments clause to this day. And David knows it's something that irks me. It's irked me since the inauguration. This hotel in D.C. should not exist.
Nope.
We got a lot of things that shouldn't exist. Yeah.
It shouldn't be his hotel. It should not be the Trump Hotel D.C. It violated the lease.
Yeah. I mean, the day he was elected, the GSA should have said, we're starting a forced sale of the property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can do.
You have no option.
If anything meant anything anymore.
Right.
You can't keep this lease. There hasn't been one hearing on this.
Is that right? None? That's bad
None.
news. I don't know. Yeah, I can't understand it, but that's just one of those other things. 67 is now 51. 3/5 is a half. 30 is 2. And this law about leasing to government employees isn't real. And there's no collusion, and it's a witch hunt. I guess it's all of a piece. Black is white, up is down. I mean, the emoluments clause thing. It's like, it puts you in fear of everything. I mean, if the emoluments clause doesn't mean what it means and isn't asked about in Congress for, I don't know whether there's a reason behind it or not, then what does any of it mean? I don't know.
Yeah. Then why can't a foreign power elect our presidents?
I don't know.
A foreign power did. Can they do it again? I mean, this is just an amazing thing. Look, that there is a fellow on the House, I believe it's the Judiciary Committee, because it was Gowdy's committee. I think he was Judiciary. The ranking member, some Dan Collins. I'd never heard of him before, but he keeps releasing transcripts. And he did Lisa Page's testimony transcript yesterday. And Trump tweeted about this morning because I think she said something about, Justice said, we're not going to indict on this evidence. And he said, aha, the fix was in. But if you look at the Lisa Page transcript, she talks about senior people in the FBI telling investigators, you have to get Hillary Clinton. Now, if Drake, yeah, exactly. Now, Lindsey Graham wants to investigate FISA and everything else, and I assume he's doing it. Where's our investigation of the people that Lisa Page named in the FBI who were directing, not just saying bad things about Hillary, were directing investigators to get her.
To go after her.
I don't know.
See, those are two different things. Like Strzok and Page personally were watching a debate and talking bad about Trump. But there's no indication that they were saying we have to get Trump to investigators.
Right.
Nope.
Page's testimony, if you take it seriously, and Trump did, he tweeted about it today, said that there were people, senior people in the FBI, that were instructing investigators to get Hillary.
Well, then, that was his original excuse for firing Comey.
Right.
I haven't even heard a comment from a Democratic lawmaker on this point.
Oh, well, I don't know that they don't exist.
Neither have I.
But, sometimes it takes several of them saying it several times for us to notice, but I mean, it may also be that there isn't any. And I don't know. I mean, there's so many things to handle.
I don't want to be the person that's just ripping Democrats, and I'm sure they're doing good things and important things, and
yes.
They won, so they're there. I wish there's just. I don't know.
There's a lot that falls through the cracks.
I know the Green New Deal and all this other stuff, and everyone said, "Oh, people don't want to say, let's work on legislation." You're not going to get any legislation. None of that stuff's going to pass.
True.
This is actual real stuff that you can do something about. You can subpoena people and have public hearings. And
I'd argue that they also, for 2020, they also need to produce legislation. They also need to show this is what we'll do. Give us the chance. I mean, they can do both of those things at the same time, but yeah.
There's a lot.
Investigations, please.
I'm more cynical.
And also, in their defense, there's a great, great mound of things needing investigation. So.
Yeah, well, I mean,
they
that's why
have
we have committees.
Full.
I would say this: the most important investigations, because it's the most important thing, I believe, as substantively, but politically, is to investigate Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Get those stories out. Listen, they did this Michael Cohen thing, and Michael Cohen was fine, whatever, but it really wasn't something. He really was a flawed witness. I would have brought up the GSA guy to explain the emoluments issue. How does he have this hotel? How many people? How do you know that what's going on with the people that are staying there? Not just foreign, but domestic. The T-Mobile story, is amazing.
This guy passing notes to him at Mar-a-Lago that are going straight to the Veterans Affairs.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and Jack Nicklaus, believe it or not, with this crazy story.
Yes.
That he gets $20 million for his hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talk. I talked about it a little bit. I think yesterday. By the way, do presidents earmark in their budgets ever? Does anybody? I don't think that they do things like this hospital. And I mean, he didn't. You know how earmarks work. Any hospital that meets the following criteria: one, owned by Jack Nicklaus. That's not exactly how they do it, but. I don't know that I've seen earmarks in a presidential.
They set them to the House appropriators and say, put this in there.
Right. Now they don't have those guys. But
now they don't have them anymore to do that. But, again, there are no norms anymore. And
the number of things, it impacts everybody. There's a million things that you forget about. To throw one other in there, or to give you an idea of the breadth of the number of things that are falling through the cracks because there's no way to pay attention to them all. I noticed Jesse Lee tweeting yesterday in response to Rachel Maddow, actually. Just saying, man, I totally forgot about this thing. Even as somebody who works in politics and professionally and holding Trump accountable, there must just be endless stories like this that have gone down the memory hole. The story being Rachel Maddow saying, okay, news story yesterday, the Boeing, 737 MAX 8 planes that are having such trouble, and now the Boeing chairman calls Trump and says, I want you to be the only country in the world not to ground the fleet. And then, by the way, Trump tweets, oh my God, they're death traps. I don't know why he did that, but okay. But Maddow pointing out, why is there only an acting administrator, again, at the FAA?
The top three positions at FAA are all acting.
And part of the reason that they're all acting was that when they finally said, Trump, you got to nominate a director of the FAA, he said, how about my pilot? my personal pilot. And everybody said, no, God damn it. What's wrong with you? You can't do that. Well, then nobody. And it should be investigated.
Honestly, yeah, you got, to me, the things that I would highlight if I was running the House would be corruption and incompetent stuff. It's the fruit that, frankly, excites reporters. It's what will stick with the public.
Yeah.
Look. Everybody knows he's a racist already, and some people vote for him because of it, and some people will vote against him. But the persuadables, I just think corruption is the one that's. I'm turning into Rahm Emanuel, who wanted to run on the culture of corruption in 2006. I guess.
Yes, but he was bad on
that. Everybody knew about Iraq, in my opinion, but there's no Iraq war to point to here. I don't know. You know what? It's easy from the cheap seats, I guess. But you got to hold your caucus together. And maybe they know more than I do. I'll leave that as a possibility.
All right. We'll keep it open. There's a lot.
Greg doesn't know more than me, but they might.
Well, it's impossible to keep eyes on everything. But then this is what the committee system is supposed to be for. I mean, it's impossible to keep eyes on every legislative issue. We divide and conquer and do the best we can with it. I guess, though, at some point, really even just to bring it back to Pelosi, at some point you say, the Congress is drowning under the weight of the investigations. There are so many that the only remedy to get back on track and legislate about real things is to get rid of this president.
Right.
But no. Okay.
I'd sure like to find a way for them to get rid of Comey, too. I mean, out of the public eye. I'm just,
Oh? Okay.
I'm going back to what Armando was talking about before.
Yeah.
With the FBI, and just, his rehabilitation tour still irks me a great deal.
Okay. I'm glad you brought that up, because we sometimes forget that, and people fall very easily into, well, he's damaging Trump. He's a hero. And
no, it's his fault.
He didn't damage Trump at all.
He's there.
He elevated Trump. It's funny. Lisa Page was asked about that by Sheila Jackson Lee. It's actually an interesting transcript. And the arrogance of these FBI people, it's still coming through. Oh, we thought that the DOJ would be perceived as biased, as opposed to us, who everyone respects as impartial and objective. It's like,
interesting.
What are you talking about? What was wrong with you people? The arrogance was stunning, and it's still there. She's like, well, we did it in good faith. I said, no, here's what you do in good faith, like everybody else. You follow the rules.
Yep.
Yeah, you can usually fall back on
rules.
That.
They didn't follow the rules. Simple as that.
Yeah. We have some pervasive systemic problems.
Yes, we
do, but they start at the top. It's a crisis, and no one wants to just. You've got to go after the head. That's one thing where I think that was jarring about Pelosi's statement. And to go back to, he's not worth it. He's absolutely worth it. You go for the biggest crook. What do you mean he's not worth it? It doesn't make sense what she said.
No, but it was a stupid statement. I don't understand it, but.
And it goes to the entire discussion we're having about what to do in the House. All right, nice. You passed H.R. 1. They passed that other bill. They'll pass a bunch of bills. They'll all sound good. I don't know what they'll do on climate. They'll come up with some compromise thing at some point, and they'll pass it. They'll make, they'll highlight climate. But the reality is those types of issues, that's going to be highlighted by the presidential race.
Mm-hmm.
The House, in my view, has power to highlight the problems and corruption in the administration itself, whereas the presidential candidates will speak to our vision for the future. I think that
the one thing that they're doing, however, and I'm going to argue on filibuster reform again here, is showing to the presidentials, influencing the presidentials in terms of this is everything that we can pass if we're in. But it is making the case for for taking the Senate and getting rid of the filibuster. So I think that puts some pressure, I hope, on presidential candidates to say, yeah, which will hopefully put some pressure on Schumer. I mean, I'm 2 years ahead.
I see. Yeah, no, you have a good point.
I'm
You're
trying
right.
to fast forward here, looking at judges, looking at filibuster reform, looking at what we can do in 2021, because I really hate 2019.
Well, I tell you, I think the presidential candidates can be important about that too. I mean, one of the things that's helped Mayor Pete, I'm not going to try to do his last name.
Yeah.
Is he's actually put some ideas into the discussion, maybe inadvertently, but he's put them in. I think that why more people are discussing expanding or reforming the court system is because he said he's open to it. Now, so has Warren. And,
yes.
I got to say something about Elizabeth Warren, and it's going to be very positive. Whatever happens with her campaign, she is introducing important issues into the discussion that aren't just health care and raising the minimum wage. This tech proposal is actually really important. I'm curious to see how the other candidates react to it. And there's some really good ideas there. It probably needs some more work, but I like that she's going back to being herself a little bit, and not so much doing the things I know she needed to do, because you always have to, introducing yourself and whatnot. But now she's back to, being Elizabeth Warren again.
Oh, absolutely, being the wonk. And it's kind of interesting. Right now we're in the process of putting together candidate questionnaires to make sure that we've got all of the issues covered and that we can point to. This candidate is here on this issue, this candidate. What's really hard is that Warren basically has all of the bases covered, and we don't want to put our thumb on the scale for anybody here, because this is still a primary. Well, except against Tulsi Gabbard and
well, the questionnaires will make it easy.
Yes, the questionnaires will make it easy. But how much of the agenda Elizabeth Warren has set so far?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's fair enough to say, well, look, all the bases are covered. If you're an issues person strictly, the answers to the questionnaires will tell you what to do. If you have other considerations like, I don't know, I guess the stupid header of electability, you could.
Yeah, I was just going to say likability.
Yeah. Likability, electability, however, whatever, intangible you want to put on it. You're all free to do that. I can't tell you who to like, but I mean, facts are facts. Here's the issues we identified. Maybe we, forgot one or included one that you didn't think was important, but these are the ones we decided on. And what else are we supposed to tell you? This person hit 20 out of 20, and that one hit 16 out of 20, and that one hit 14 out of 20. What do you think we think about that?
Yeah. Well, and it also helps to keep those issues elevated and to keep setting the agenda for this campaign.
Yeah, I think that Warren is going to get a second act in this thing, and I think mostly it's because she's being Elizabeth Warren again. The whole thing with the beer and the periscope or whatever the heck she did. I understand you got to do that. Don't get me wrong, but that's not why we think of Elizabeth Warren as a serious and someone we wanted in the race. The one that we're seeing now is the Elizabeth Warren that excited people. It seems to me, and
good.
I'm excited about her being in the race. That at least maybe I'm personalizing it, but that's what's working for me with her campaign and making me look at everything she's saying again very closely.
Well, all right. There you have it. It's all decided.
I usually don't pick this early, but I'm really leaning hard on Warren because she's a wonk, and we need a wonk.
Yes, although
every straw poll, I admit I vote for Elizabeth Warren.
Okay. Now, the bias is revealed.
the bias is revealed. Also, she sent me a really nice email.
Ah, well, that's easy.
A personal one. A personal one.
Yeah, okay.
No, not a campaign one, a personal one.
You should give her your proposal for VA dentistry. See if it works. Well, all right.
Manifold news,
Yes.
Armando?
Oh. No, I'm done. I'll turn back your 7 minutes here.
Yes.
I yield my time.
Thank you. I was out yesterday and have not been following Congress that closely. I don't think that they have anything huge on this week, except the Senate voting on the bill that Nancy Pelosi had already said isn't going to go anywhere. So,
and what? I will give you one little piece that I'm seeing on TV now, which is that as opposed to his appearance in Virginia, Paul Manafort is really sorry about his conduct in front of Judge Amy Berman Jackson. So he found his contrition apparently.
Okay. He watched what happened to Stone and that she wasn't taking any guff, I guess, and he's done with the friendly judge.
Apparently, he's also wearing a suit this time.
Yeah, I was curious.
Although still in a wheelchair.
Yeah. What's his complaint? Why is he in a wheelchair? Do we know? Gout. Okay. That's a huge problem in the prisons. Gout. All right. Whatever. Never really heard of them. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Gout.
So no word on the actual sentencing.
Still exists.
Yeah.
No word yet. That everybody makes big speeches.
Okay.
And the judge just reads her.
So we're still in the speech stage.
We're still in the speech stage.
Okay. Well, let's see. I guess all that's happening congressionally, I mean, I guess they're up against their deadline, if they take it seriously in the Senate, to vote on the resolution disapproving, terminating the state of emergency, which Greg mentioned was set to pass, but not necessarily with veto-proof numbers, but that Trump was whipping votes, apparently, and I don't know whether that'll make his vote total higher or lower. Yeah.
I don't think so. He's not going to change the 4 votes.
Yeah, I doubt it. Everybody knows it's freebie.
They're already set. Tillis is kind of a surprising one.
Oh, okay.
Collins, Murkowski, and Rand Paul.
Yeah.
And, they're not going to. Well, you never know on Rand Paul.
Yeah, right.
Pretty sure he's not going to change positions this time.
Yeah. I wonder, the proposal, I guess, from Pence to pass legislation that Pelosi says she won't even consider to make this a one-time thing, do you think that saves anybody in the Republican Senate who says, well, I think this sets a terrible precedent? Oh, wait, I could pass legislation to automatically declare that it has no precedential value? Then great. I only opposed it because of the bad precedent, and we're erasing that possibility. But I guess they'd have to, if they were serious, they'd have to see it passed in the House first. But if they're just faking it, I guess anything goes.
They're just faking it.
Oh, well, so then anything goes. I guess that's a possibility. I see in the House that there was a Republican member who voted against the resolution and then told all his constituents that he voted for it.
Yeah.
That seems fun. I suppose if you can do that and get away with it.
That was our Bigfoot guy.
Yes, right. That's how we know
Riggleman?
him. Yes, right.
Yeah.
Denver Riggleman. He's not from Denver. That's his name. Okay. Whatever, man. All right. Well, I guess we had a good discussion. That brings us to pretty much the end of things out of time. So just as well that they're not doing anything all that serious in the House or the Senate.
If they do, I'll give you a call and let you know.
Okay. We'll accept the call tomorrow. Right. Armando used all your time, so you're entitled to more tomorrow, Friday, anytime you want.
He did. And there was stuff I wanted to talk about, too. So.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad it worked out then. I was a little worried about that, but... Okay, well, and thank you for also being sure to step on him when necessary and say, wait a second, I have a point to make. Thank you. I'm glad you did that. Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you both for helping carry us all the way through.
You're most welcome. Bye-bye.
We'll check in with you next week. Okay. Very good. Thanks, everybody. Do stay tuned, of course, for Justice Putnam's program coming up next. And if I can find, where are all the buttons that I need? There we go. Give me the Skype, ladies and gentlemen. And then I can tell you all about what's coming up on the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy next. Let's see how much of it I can fit in here. There it is. All right. Let's see. Democratic strategist Rochelle Ritchie told Fox and Friends that Alabama has criminalized the poor for drug testing food stamp recipients. This is a familiar theme. Renewed this time by Rochelle Ritchie. Then, Coast Guard officer described by prosecutors as a domestic terrorist. Oh no, I don't want to rate the quality of the call now. Will not be facing terrorism charges. Can you believe that? All right, we got to explore that. Thanks, Justice, for taking that up.
From Daily Kos Radio on netrootsradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
I don't know how you escape terrorism charges on that. A GOP congressman who votes with Trump 92.5% of the time wants investigations into people who disagree with him. And Trump's budget ignores the real threat of, believe it or not, Russian election attack. How can he ignore that? Gee whiz. That's up next.